yeah, it should be pretty fun. Pretty I'm looking forward to the next month and a half are going to be huge during this quarantine.
Dude, that's amazing. And
Yeah,
make sure you let us know when any of your projects get picked up, and so we can we can let our listeners know that it's
I
something to
will.
attach to. And
Right.
I'll
Hopefully, hopefully everyone knows.
yeah.
Hopefully, they'll be on commercials and on your streaming platforms soon.
Yeah.
Or,
Good
yeah.
deal. Okay, so before we get into football questions, I have some movie questions and some actor questions for you. Okay, so first of all, I've always been a huge fan of Seth Rogen and those guys, that whole
Right.
crew. But
I just watched like This Is the End and like ironically the interview yesterday with my girlfriend because she hasn't seen any of my girlfriend. She grew up in Sweden, so she's never seen a single Seth Rogen movie. So I'm jealous that she's now gotten to see them all for the first time.
Yeah.
So I've been rewatching all of them this past week.
yeah, so that's
Yeah.
funny you say that because a few days ago I just watched the interview for the first time too.
Oh wow.
I
Wow.
I assume you're a big fan of Rogen and Franco.
Huge fan. I mean, like Pineapple Express. Yeah, This Is the End. I mean, all the Sausage Party. I mean, I can keep going, but yes, I am.
Good deal, good deal. What has been like your go-to movies like throughout the quarantine process?
I mean, I mentioned earlier, like the Gentleman was one. I mean, just Guy Ritchie stuff, rock and roll.
I love that movie probably
Snatch.
way more than I should. I'm
Right.
obsessed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's Guy Ritchie. It's a Guy Ritchie to a T. You know what I mean? Um, but in terms of stuff that I've watched during the quarantine, I probably have to say, I mean, I've been really big into just comedies right now, just because everything else I see is just so negative and dark, and it's kind of hard because I'm usually into darker stuff and neo noirs and westerns and you know crime, like gritty type of films. But so far, I've just been really into just watching comedies, just because it's like right now, like we're living through a dark, twisted
Yeah.
sci-fi drama. You know what I mean? So it's like I'd rather watch funny stuff, I guess. If that makes sense.
No, I mean back to freaking Guy Ritchie. Snatch is one of my favorite movies like
Oh yeah.
ever.
Hmm.
Ever over. Okay. And then I mean because Jordan and we talked about like movies for like an hour on the show last time, and we were talking about he's a USC guy too, Will Ferrell. Are you a fan of him?
I am. I am. I mean, he's not. Obviously, I've been more of a Seth, and James guy, but I do like Talladega Nights, Step Brothers. Me and Braxton were just watching a few days ago. So yeah, I mean, I will get into some Will Ferrell stuff. He hasn't done anything like super notable in the past few years, but I mean, in terms of what I grew up on, that's always the guy who, he always comes to mind.
Okay, because I feel like people are either, I mean, Will Ferrell's a guy you either love or you hate him. I feel like a lot of people
Right.
nowadays are like, that's not their kind of humor. That was like the humor when we were growing up and things like that.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, it has gotten. I guess humor has, I guess, changed. It's been, I don't know how to put this, but in terms of just what you can get away with now, what I
Yeah.
mean? It's changed, and in terms of just the budget and money being put towards comedies, has changed. But I mean, who knows? Maybe with all the madness going on, it might go the other way in the 2020s, or people might want to see more of that raunchy,
Yeah.
no holds barred humor. So we'll see.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I definitely hope they go back. I agree with you though. I feel like the Will Ferrell era, that I feel like it
Right.
quickly disintegrated when James Franco and Seth Rogen started doing their stuff.
Right.
It was much more it was like more intensely crude and kind of had like a stoner edge to it.
Right.
Movies like Superbad, I just find those so
Hmm.
much funnier than like Anchorman,
Uh-huh.
because
Uh-huh.
I feel like Anchorman was like written by 14-year-olds.
Right. 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 Right.
And so,
Yeah. Hmm.
I mean, it's hard to call. It's like, I don't know. It's sophisticated is not the right word because there's nothing like sophisticated about the stoner humor,
Right.
But
Whereas nowadays, it's like all humor has to be sophisticated and well thought out, and there's less room for stoner humor, and there's more room for stuff that's inertly funny and politically correct.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were lucky when we were growing up, like the movies that were coming out and that kind of humor that they were able to get away with, man.
Yeah. It's
We were
like that 2000s wave, that kind of it died out in the early 2010s, but
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let me ask some football questions. So you were on the Colts for a little bit. Let me ask, how is Andrew Luck like? I imagine Andrew Luck to be like a huge nerd. Is he?
He is. He is.
What's he like?
No, he's an awesome guy. But he is one of those people. There's few people I know like this, but he's one of those guys who legitimately knows at least a little bit about everything. Like honestly, there isn't a single conversation that Andrew like can like there isn't a single conversation that can be had around Andrew that he just doesn't know at least a few things about. Like whether it's movies, whether it's video games, whether it's stocks, whether it's who knows, Parks and Recreation. It's just like across the board, he legitimately knows like a little bit about pretty much everything, which can be nice, and it also can be, hey, Andrew, I'm having this conversation with someone else. Don't worry about it. But no, he's a great guy. He honestly is awesome dude.
That's dope. That's dope.
Yeah.
That's dope. Okay, and I was watching this game like last week. It was I think what'd you guys play Washington State in, the Sun Bowl?
Sun Bowl, yeah.
Okay. I have to ask you, man, what was going through your head when that halfback pass was called?
I mean, to be honest, like it worked in practice. Like every day in practice, like we probably repped it 3 times. And like even when like before we left Miami, like we had repped it. We had came up with it in the film, like in the meeting rooms. Joe was a high school quarterback, so I mean he was throwing the ball really well. And even during the week leading up in El Paso, like it was sunny. It was like the weather was nice. I mean, it was a little windy here and there, but I mean, just about every single day it was like 65 degrees. There was no sign of any blizzard, any snowstorm. Like there was no sign of it at all. So it was working pretty well in practice. He was spinning it like 45 yards on a dime, throwing it better than I was. And I was like, why don't we just go Wildcat in this game, honestly? And then game day came, and I mean the ball must have slipped out of his glove, I think. And then I just was watching the ball, float through the air, just thinking, there goes the game. And then, but it was rough. And then we actually almost came back and tied the game, but then a penalty negated that. We actually had several chances to, but it was a tough one. But I mean, I believed in the call when it was called, like when the play call got called in. I thought it was going to be a touchdown. Honestly, I mean, I didn't really think about the fact that there was a snowstorm that might lead to a slick glove and a interception, but
that game you guys had like 5 plays taken away from penalties.
I mean there were so many different plays that just didn't go our way. We honestly, looking back, should have won that game. I mean, Washington State didn't, across the board. I mean, they were nowhere near, player for player, they just didn't match up with us. Obviously those Northwestern folk are used to snow and cold weather, but I mean, I think we had like a fumble in the red zone. We had a touchdown called back that would have put us ahead. What else? Another ball, a pass that turned into an interception in the red zone. But just a bunch of stuff didn't go our way. But nonetheless, we still almost damn near won the game, which I don't know how, but yep. Yep. So great end to 2015 in the snow in Texas.
I got a question for you. So we had Marquez Williams on our draft thing that we did over the weekend.
Nice.
Had like a live broadcast.
Right.
And so you came up, and I asked him what his favorite Brad Kaaya story was.
Nice.
And he just said that there was like a time that you guys went to the bars and you were wearing like shades and like trying to disguise yourself and stuff. And that made me laugh, but it got me thinking, like, what was it like being 19, moving across the country, and then like being famous, I guess. Like you're the starting QB for one of the most legendary college programs.
Right.
Like, were you getting recognized on the street and just what was it like, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like I was getting recognized on the street more than I did on campus, which can be, I don't know what that's a commentary on. Maybe the fact that I guess, you know, like UM is almost considered a professional team, in the state of Florida, as opposed to back home. It was like, yeah, USC, you get recognized on campus, but there's so many celebrities around LA. It's like no one really cares that much about football. Whereas in Miami, it's like everywhere I'd go, whether it be El Ricancito or Yard House or, no matter what, even out in South Beach, it's like, how are these, 45-year-old European bouncers recognizing me at the outside clubs, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which was a bit of a shock, but at the same time, I expected to go to Miami. I expected to play. That was always the plan. And I think I handled it well. It wasn't, obviously it was surprising, but at the same time, it's what comes with it. And some people have to know how to balance, the extracurricular stuff and balance stuff outside of the field. You obviously can't let that outweigh what the on-field product should be. And some people let that get the most of them. And we've seen that happen, I think, a lot throughout college football. And we've seen it happen unfortunately, it's happened at UM before. So yeah, you have to know how to balance it all, because obviously living in Miami, I mean, everyone knows what happens in Miami. It's just a matter of letting it spill out into your other, aspects of your life.
So. Which town do you think has like a crazier nightlife scene, Miami or LA?
I'd say Miami. Definitely
Really?
Miami, without a doubt, Miami. Yeah, in Miami. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, because I have friends. I mean, they live in LA and they're into banking over there and everything, and they say it's insane. But
they're rich.
Into Miami.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I just had to ask. That's a question I had always wondered about. Which college team, when you were at Miami, which college team do you think had the most trash talkers?
Like in terms of like ACC or just I mean.
Like in general, like which defense had like the most trash talkers?
It was always, what's crazy is it was always the really bad teams, like the teams that we were expected to blow out. Those were always the teams that did the most trash talking. It wasn't Florida State. It wasn't. I mean, obviously we had our own, issues with Florida State, but it wasn't the big teams. It was always like the, U's and the, I don't know, the Arkansas States, like the FAMU's of the world. They always talk the most trash. But like the teams, I don't know if it was they weren't intimidated by us, or they didn't feel the need to, or maybe we intimidated them. But yeah, it was always like the really, really bad unranked teams, like the FCS, FCS Southeast on NCAA 14, those type of teams.
Because I mean, I remember listening to an interview. I think Braxton did actually, and he got asked that same question, and he said North Carolina talked a lot of trash.
Oh yeah, they did. Right. Whereas Duke wouldn't say a word. It was like two different entities, even though they're both within miles of each other.
Well, what was it like when
that Andrew Luck thing?
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, it's probably like the Andrew Luck thing. If you would have asked them about the economy, they would have had plenty to say.
Oh, right. Or thermodynamics or anything like that. Yeah.
Oh, what was the question I was just going to ask? What was going through your mind when you guys played UNC and that guy did the upside down U or whatever?
I mean, at that point we were getting our butts whipped. So I mean, it was like, there's obviously there's something that I would love to be able to do right now, but at this moment we can't really do very much currently. So it's, it was kind of like my hands were tied at that moment, honestly. But they got it back the next year or
Yeah, that was
2 years later.
yeah, that I mean that game sucked. That sucked.
Yeah.